The Montana wilderness stretched endlessly before James Harrison's cabin, its pristine silence broken only by the occasional cry of an eagle. At 45, his rugged features and steel-grey eyes spoke of battles long past, wars fought in places whose names most couldn't pronounce. He'd chosen this isolation 3 years ago, when the nightmares of what he'd done, what he'd become, grew too heavy to carry among ordinary people. The evening sky erupted in flames. James's military training kicked in as he tracked the burning object plummeting through the atmosphere. Not a meteor, too controlled, too deliberate. The craft, sleek and obviously alien, carved a path through his forest before coming to rest in a smoking crater half a mile from his cabin. He shouldered his rifle out of habit, though he knew it would be useless against any species advanced enough for interstellar travel. As he approached the wreckage, the ship's hull seemed to shimmer with an iridescent purple hue, unlike any metal he'd encountered during his service years. A panel slid open with a hydraulic kiss. "Please," came a melodious voice. "We seek sanctuary." 2 figures emerged from the smoke. The first, a woman, stood nearly 7 feet tall, her skin a deep indigo that seemed to catch the moonlight like silk. Her hair, floating as if suspended in water, glowed with bioluminescent patterns. Behind her, clutching her hand, stood a child no more than 6 by human standards, sharing her mother's ethereal beauty. "The Empire comes," the woman said, her English perfect, but accented with musical tones. "I am Princess Valeria of the Centauri, and this is my daughter Zara. We fled rather than submit to my brother's tyranny." Her eyes, filled with desperate determination, met James's. "I offer myself as your concubine in exchange for protection." James lowered his rifle, a bitter laugh escaping his throat. "Lady, I left civilization because I couldn't stand being around people. What makes you think I want a concubine?" Before Valeria could respond, the sky lit up again. 3 massive ships, their hulls black as deep space, descended through the clouds. Searchlights swept the forest floor. "They're here," Valeria whispered, pulling Zara close. James's mind raced through options. His cabin held enough firepower to start a small war, weapons he'd forgotten to return after his discharge, but against advanced alien technology. "Please," Zara spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the same musical quality as her mother's. "They'll take me away, make me like them." Something in the child's voice struck a chord in James's hardened heart. He recognized the fear, the same fear he'd seen in too many children's eyes across too many battlefields. "Follow me," he growled, already regretting his decision. "And stay close." They barely made it to the cabin before the first energy blast scorched the earth where they'd stood. James ushered them inside, his mind already calculating angles, cover, escape routes. "Your weapons will be useless against their shields," Valeria said, watching him check his arsenal. James smiled grimly. "Lady, these aren't standard issue." He pulled out what looked like a modified rifle, its barrel glowing with a faint blue light. "Some souvenirs from my last deployment. Let's just say we weren't always fighting human enemies." Valeria's eyes widened. "You've encountered our kind before." "That's a story for another time." James tossed her a smaller weapon. "Know how to use one of these?" The princess handled the gun with surprising familiarity. "I wasn't always royalty." Outside, troops were already deploying from the ships. Their armor, black and insectoid, made them look like giant mechanical ants in the moonlight. "Mom," Zara whispered, "they brought Shadow Guard." James saw fear flash across Valeria's face. "Elite troops," she explained. "Cybernetically enhanced. They feel no pain, no mercy. Good, James replied, checking his weapons one last time. Neither do I. As the first wave of troops approached the cabin, James felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. These two strangers had shattered his self-imposed exile, bringing chaos to his doorstep. But as he watched Valeria shield her daughter, saw the fierce protective love in her eyes, he knew he couldn't turn them away. "Last chance to surrender, Princess." A mechanically enhanced voice boomed from outside. The Emperor grows impatient. James moved to a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a tunnel entrance. "We can escape through here, but they'll follow. We need a distraction." Valeria stepped forward, her alien features set with determination. "I can help with that." She raised her hand, and suddenly the air around her crackled with energy. "My people have certain abilities." James raised an eyebrow. "Now that's interesting. Anything else I should know about?" "Many things," she replied with a slight smile. "But as you said, stories for another time." As the first explosion rocked the cabin's foundations, James made a choice that would forever alter his solitary existence. Sometimes he realized the best way to escape your past was to fight for someone else's future. "Well then, Your Highness," he chambered around in his rifle, "let's give them a proper Earth welcome." The night erupted in chaos, marking the beginning of an adventure none of them had anticipated. For James Harrison, it was the end of isolation, and perhaps the start of redemption. The underground tunnel echoed with their footsteps as James led Valeria and Zara through the darkness. Decades-old military installations beneath his cabin formed a maze of concrete and steel, a relic of the Cold War that few knew existed. "You planned for this," Valeria observed, her natural bioluminescence casting a soft glow around them. "Not for aliens," James replied, checking another corner. "But when you've seen what I have, you learn to be prepared." Behind them, distant explosions shook dust from the ceiling. James's automated defense systems were keeping the Shadow Guard busy, but they wouldn't last forever. "They're following our energy signatures," Zara said suddenly, her small voice carrying an understanding beyond her years. "The quantum trail for Mom's powers." James glanced at the child, adding another piece to the puzzle. No wonder the Empire wanted her. She was gifted even by her people's standards. "Smart girl," he said, "which means we need to move faster." They emerged in an old military hangar, carved into the mountainside 1/2 mile from his cabin. Inside sat what appeared to be a modified Humvee, but its armor gleamed with the same otherworldly sheen as some of James's weapons. "You really did fight our kind before," Valeria whispered, running her hand along the vehicle's hull. "The official story says I was in Afghanistan." James began powering up the vehicle's systems. "The truth is complicated." A massive explosion rocked the hangar. The Shadow Guard had found them sooner than expected. Through the dust emerged 3 figures, their black armor seeming to absorb light itself. "Princess Valeria," the lead guard's mechanical voice echoed. "The child comes with us. The Emperor's will is absolute." "My brother is a monster," Valeria snarled, energy crackling around her hands. "He'll turn her into a weapon." The child's power must serve the Empire. James had heard enough. He moved with practiced precision, his modified rifle spitting pulses of blue energy. The first guard's shields flickered but held. "James down," Valeria shouted. He dropped as a wave of pure force erupted from her hands, slamming into the guards. Their shields shattered, but the cybernetic warriors kept advancing. What happened next nearly made James question his sanity. Little Zara stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an inner light. The air itself seemed to bend around her. The closest guard suddenly froze, his armor crumpling inward as if crushed by an invisible hand. "Zara, no." Valeria pulled her daughter back. "You're not ready for that power yet." The remaining guards pressed their advantage. James rolled to cover, noticing how they specifically targeted Valeria while trying to flank around to Zara. Their mission was clear: capture the child, eliminate anyone in the way. Time slowed as James's combat instincts took over. He saw Valeria's energy blasts weakening, saw Zara's terrified eyes, saw the guard's methodical advance. In that moment, his years of isolation felt like nothing more than hiding. "Get to the vehicle," he shouted, breaking cover. James moved like a man possessed, closing distance with the guards. Their enhanced strength meant nothing against his years of experience fighting superhuman opponents. He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off, planted an alien explosive on one guard's armor, and used the resulting detonation to launch himself at the other. They went down in a tangle of limbs and sparking cybernetics. James felt ribs crack under the guard's enhanced strength, but he didn't stop. He jammed his combat knife, another souvenir from his classified missions, into a gap in the armor. The blade, designed to penetrate energy shields, found its mark. "James." Valeria's warning came just as the third guard materialized behind him, phasing technology making it nearly invisible. A blast of pure energy from Valeria caught the guard mid-strike. James rolled clear, scooped up his fallen rifle, and put 3 rounds through the destabilized armor. Silence fell in the hangar, broken only by harsh breathing and the crackle of dying energy fields. "You're hurt." Valeria approached, reaching toward his injured side. "I've had worse." James grunted, though he couldn't hide a wince. "We need to move." "Hold still," she commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. Her hands glowed with a different energy now, soft and warm. James felt his ribs knit back together, the pain fading to a dull ache. "Healing too." He raised an eyebrow. "Any other abilities I should know about?" "Many," she smiled, echoing their earlier conversation. "But we really should move now." They piled into the vehicle, James at the wheel while Valeria held a sleeping Zara in the back. The child had collapsed shortly after her display of power, concerning both adults. "She's too young," Valeria explained as they sped through hidden mountain roads. "Our abilities usually manifest at maturity. Zara, she's special. That's why my brother wants her." "Your brother?" James kept his eyes on the road. "The Emperor. Tell me about him." Valeria's voice turned cold. "Imagine someone with all our abilities, but without compassion or restraint. The Empire used to be a beacon of civilization. Under his rule, it's becoming something else. He wants to create more like him, starting with Zara." James processed this as he drove, pieces falling into place. "And you were next in line before him." "I was first in line," she corrected. "But I believed in cooperation with other species, in using our gifts to help rather than dominate. My brother disagreed, violently." The implications hung heavy in the air. James had seen enough coups and power grabs in his time to fill in the blanks. "Where are we going?" Valeria asked after a while. "I have a safe house in Canada. Off-grid, stocked with supplies. We can regroup there, figure out our next move." "Our?" she questioned softly. James met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Lady, your brother just destroyed my home and tried to kill me. I'm involved now, whether I like it or not." A small smile played across Valeria's lips. "And do you like it?" James didn't answer immediately, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant colors. His self-imposed exile had been about escaping his past, avoiding connections that could lead to more pain. Now, in less than 12 hours, he'd thrown himself into an interstellar conflict and appointed himself protector of an alien princess and her gifted child. "Ask me again, when we're not being chased by cyborg assassins," he finally replied, but there was a hint of humor in his voice. As they drove north, James couldn't shake the feeling that his life had irrevocably changed. The soldier in him said this was a tactical nightmare. Outgunned, outnumbered, facing an enemy with superior technology and resources. But another part of him, a part he thought long buried, felt more alive than he had in years. In the back seat, Zara stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching for her mother's. Valeria hummed softly, a melody unlike anything Earth had ever heard. James found himself smiling despite everything. Sometimes the best families were forged in fire. The Canadian safe house turned out to be a renovated Cold War bunker, buried deep in the forests of British Columbia. As James disabled the security systems and led them inside, Valeria couldn't help but marvel at the thoroughness of his preparation. "You really did think of everything," she said, taking in the stockpiles of supplies and weapons. "Not everything," James replied, checking the bunker's advanced monitoring systems. "Never planned on hosting alien royalty." 2 weeks had passed since their escape from Montana. While Zara recovered her strength, James and Valeria had fallen into an uneasy routine of combat training and strategic planning. The princess proved to be a quick study with Earth weapons, while James learned to adapt his fighting style to counter energy-based attacks. There being too quiet, James mused one evening, studying satellite feeds on multiple screens. "Your brother doesn't strike me as the patient type." Valeria's face darkened. "He's planning something." Arkin always had a flair for the dramatic. She paused, considering her next words carefully. "There's something you need to know about Zara." Before she could continue, alarms blared throughout the bunker. James's hands flew across the controls, bringing up external camera feeds. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of ships filled the sky, their black hulls blotting out the stars. But these weren't military vessels. They were civilian crafts, packed with refugees. "No," Valeria whispered, horror in her voice. "He wouldn't." A transmission cut through all frequencies, impossible to ignore. Emperor Arkin's holographic image materialized in the center of the room, his features strikingly similar to Valeria's but twisted with cruel amusement. "Dearest sister," his voice dripped with false warmth. "Did you think you could hide forever? For each day you deny me what is mine, I will destroy one of these ships. Their blood is on your hands." The transmission ended. Above, one of the refugee ships exploded in a silent flash of light. "Mom." Zara stood in the doorway, her young face pale but determined. "I should go with them." "No," both adults shouted simultaneously. James turned to Valeria, his voice tight with controlled anger. Time for the whole truth. What makes Zara so special that he'd murder innocents to get her? Valeria seemed to age before his eyes. "Our people's abilities come from quantum manipulation, bending reality itself. But Zara, she's different. She doesn't just bend reality, she can rewrite it. In time, she could alter the very laws of physics." "That's impossible," James breathed. "Nothing is impossible with quantum mechanics," Valeria replied. "It's why she was born late in my life. I spent centuries researching, trying to unlock our people's true potential. I succeeded beyond my wildest dreams, but Arkin found out," James finished. Another explosion lit up the sky. Another ship full of innocents, gone. I won't let him have her, Valeria's voice hardened. He'd turn her into a weapon, use her power to reshape the universe in his image. James watched as Zara approached the hologram projector where her uncle's image had been. The child's eyes held wisdom far beyond her years. "He's not really after me," Zara said quietly. "He wants what Mom discovered. The formula, the process. I'm just the proof it works." Valeria's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry, little one. This is all my fault. My research, my ambition." "No," James cut in, his tactical mind racing. "This is exactly what we need." At their questioning looks, he continued, "He thinks he has us cornered, forced to choose between Zara and those refugees. But he just showed his hand." He moved to the weapons vault, pulling out equipment they hadn't yet used. "These ships aren't military vessels. Their shields will be minimal. If we can get aboard his command ship, a direct assault would be suicide," Valeria objected. "Not an assault," James smiled grimly. "An infiltration. Your brother's arrogance is his weakness. He'll expect you to surrender, try to bargain. Instead." Understanding dawned in Valeria's eyes. "We give him what he wants, apparently." Another explosion rocked the night sky. They were running out of time. "I can help." Zara stepped forward. "I've been practicing. I can hide us, sort of. Bend light and probability around us." James knelt before the child. "It's dangerous. If anything happened to you." "People are dying," Zara said simply. "I have to help." In that moment, James saw not a child, but a leader in the making. He looked to Valeria, saw the same realization in her eyes. "Then we do this together," he said, standing. "But first, there's something I need to show you both." He led them deeper into the bunker, past security doors he'd never opened before. In a heavily shielded room sat what looked like a suit of armor, but unlike anything of Earth origin. "Remember when I said I fought your kind before?" James ran his hand along the armor's surface. "I didn't just fight them. I learned from them. This suit is a hybrid of your technology and ours. Never thought I'd need it again." As he spoke, the armor seemed to respond, panels shifting and realigning. Valeria gasped in recognition. "That's precursor technology. How did you?" "Like I said, complicated." James began the startup sequence. "But right now, it's our best shot at saving those refugees and stopping your brother." Above them, more ships hung in the night sky, their passengers unaware they were pawns in a tyrant's game. Time was running out, but for the first time since this began, they had a plan. James looked at Valeria and Zara, these two extraordinary beings who had crashed into his life and shattered his isolation. Whatever happened next would change everything, not just for them, but potentially for the entire universe. "Let's go crash an Imperial party." Emperor Arkan's command ship hung like a dark star above Earth's atmosphere, its massive hull dwarfing the refugee vessels surrounding it. Inside, James, Valeria, and Zara moved silently through the corridors, cloaked by Zara's growing abilities. The research lab would be in the central chamber, Valeria whispered. Arkan always did have a flair for symbolism. James's hybrid armor hummed quietly, its sensors tracking guard movements. The technology, a fusion of Earth ingenuity and alien advancement, had already proven invaluable in bypassing security systems. They encountered surprisingly little resistance, too little. "He knows we're here," Zara said suddenly, her voice tight with concentration. "He's waiting." As if summoned by her words, energy fields snapped into place around them. The cloaking effect shattered, and Imperial guards materialize from hidden alcoves. Always so predictable, sister. Arkan's voice echoed through the chamber as he emerged from the shadows. Did you really think I wouldn't prepare for your little infiltration? But something was wrong. James noticed it first. The way Arkan's eyes kept darting to specific points in the room, the slight tremor in his usually confident voice. You're afraid, James realized aloud. Not of us, of her. He nodded toward Zara. Arkan's facade cracked slightly. That abomination should never have been created. Your experiments went too far, sister. The power to rewrite reality itself. It's too dangerous to exist. You're lying. Valeria stepped forward. You don't want to destroy her power. You want to replicate it. To make an army of reality benders loyal to you. The strong must rule, Arkan snarled. It is the natural order. What happened next occurred too fast for even James's enhanced senses to fully track. Zara, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly straightened. The air around her began to ripple. No more, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality itself shiver. No more hiding. No more running. No more hurting people. Space bent around her like light through a prism. Guards raised their weapons, but found them transformed into flowers. Arkan launched an energy blast that simply curved around her and dissipated. Zara, wait. Valeria reached for her daughter. You're not ready for this much power. But Zara's eyes held galaxies now. I understand everything, Mom. What you discovered, what you were trying to do. You wanted to help people evolve naturally over generations. He wants to force it, to control it. But neither of you truly understood what you created. The command ship's interior began to twist, corridors rearranging themselves like a cosmic puzzle box. Reality flickered between states of possibility. What are you doing? Arkan's composure completely shattered. Stop this at once. I'm not doing anything, Uncle. I'm just stopping you from doing things. Zara's voice echoed with infinite possibilities. Your weapons don't work anymore. Your ships can't hurt people. Your power. She gestured, and Arkan felt at his knees, his abilities stripped away. The universe doesn't want to be controlled, Zara continued. It wants to be free to grow, to change, to become. James and Valeria watched in awe as their little girl reshaped reality with the innocent wisdom of a child. The refugee ships were suddenly safe, their passengers transported to welcoming worlds. The Imperial fleet found itself scattered across galaxies, harmless. Zara, James stepped forward, his voice gentle. Sometimes having power means knowing when not to use it. The child goddess turned to him, and for a moment he saw every possible future spinning in her eyes. Then she smiled, just a little girl again. I know, she said simply. That's why I'm giving it back. With a gesture, she released her hold on reality. The power flowed outward, not destroyed but distributed throughout the universe, seeding countless worlds with the potential for natural evolution. Arkan, still on his knees, looked up in despair. What have you done? I made it fair, Zara replied. Now everyone has a chance to grow, to become better, even you, Uncle. In the aftermath, as Earth's governments scrambled to make sense of what happened, James found himself standing with Valeria and Zara in his rebuilt cabin in Montana. You could rule galaxies, he said to them. Instead, you choose this. Valeria took his hand, her touch sending familiar warmth through him. We choose family, she said. We choose love. Zara, playing with mountain wildflowers that seemed to bloom brighter in her presence, looked up. We choose home. James pulled them both close, finally at peace with his past and looking forward to a future he never expected. Sometimes the greatest power wasn't in reshaping reality, but in finding where you truly belonged. In the night sky above, stars twinkled with new possibility, as somewhere across the cosmos, countless beings began their own journeys of discovery, all thanks to a little girl who chose love over power, and a family forged in the fires of crisis. The end.